Today we start the first of a three-part series. Our topic for today, seed of faith. I'm talking to those who feel like they're settling in life. Maybe at one time they believed for God's blessings. Maybe they prayed, bless me, enlarge my territory, use me, let a miracle happen, which did not. And now they're willing to settle for a consolation prize. Please, Lord, let something happen. Anything will do. Maybe you're a single girl, believing that you will find a man of God, 6 foot tall, fit, loves Jesus, he's a provider, will be a good dad, he's got a lot of humor, one who loves traveling, loves old movies, one who is a good kisser. Then as the years passed by, it did not happen. 5 years later, still believing for a man, and now you say, please, as long as he's a male, as long as he's breathing, as long as he's got a job, it will be nice. Maybe you started a business, you glorified God, you say you're going to make a lot of money, you're going to love what you're doing. And then as time passes by, you pray, Lord, please, just let me be able to pay the rent at the end of the month. Maybe you prayed for kids. You promised that you're going to read them a lot of books, you're going to tell them bedtime stories, you're going to have nice parties, everything's going to be fine. But then as they grow up, maybe one day you just pray, Lord, please, just help me not to kill them. You see, there's a message for those of us who lowered our expectations of what God will do. Because we're asking for something and it didn't happen. We are compromising. Lord, if you can't do that, please just do this. Why? Because you have no idea what God may produce through a single seed that is planted in faith. If we look at the Bible story of Abraham and Sarah, they were hurting. As the years moved on, they were getting older. They wanted a baby and they couldn't conceive. Everyone around them got pregnant. They had baby showers. Nothing for them. And they asked, where is God? In Genesis 12, God made a promise to Abraham that said, I will make you a great nation. You will be the father of many nations. You will have a lot of children, a lot of grandchildren. Then, as that promise was made, they were excited. Maybe they even picked out names. They had a nursery theme. Think what it's going to be. Divided their tent into a little nursery area where they can put the baby. Sarah might even be reading books about pregnancy, thinking how they're going to bring the news to the family and friends. The first month, nothing. The second month, nothing. And they think, maybe God is just preparing. Then another month, nothing. And so time passes by, month after month, nothing. Then we read in Genesis 15 verse 1 to 2. Sometime later, the Lord spoke to Abram in a vision and said to him, do not be afraid, Abram, for I will protect you, and your reward will be great. But Abram replied, O sovereign Lord, what good are all your blessings when I don't even have a son? Genesis 12, God told him he will be the father of nations. Genesis 15, sometime later as we read. And that sometime, according to the clever people, is a decade, 10 years. Because between Genesis 15 and Genesis 12 was at least a 10-year period. So 10 years later, there were still unfulfilled promises. There were still unrealized expectations. Every month upon month, disappointment. A decade, 120 months, nothing happened. Sometimes we find us in a similar situation. Sometimes we feel that we promised something. Sometimes we prayed for something. Maybe we thought we will pay off this credit card within the next 12 months. Come the end of that period, there's even more debt on that card. Maybe you were hoping that somebody will come to Christ, a relative, a father, a brother, a sister. And after a year, 2 years, it's even worse. Maybe you trust that by next Christmas, you will be dating your future spouse. And it doesn't happen. Then you sit back and you say, Lord, did you forget about me? Maybe I did not hear right. Maybe what I heard was wrong. Are you there, Lord? And I think Abram was also finding me in that same spot. Because if you look at Abram's point of view, nothing is happening. And even he lowered his expectations. Because instead of many nations, he just wanted a son. No idea what God can do through a single seed that is planted in faith. When it comes to life, faith, God's blessings, we tend to think addition. God thinks multiplication. Way in the beginning, in Genesis, God told Adam and Eve, be fruitful and multiply. Jesus tells a story about the sower that went out to sow some seeds. Some multiplied 30 times, some 60 times, some 100 times. You see, in our lives we still have no idea what God can do through a single seed that's planted in faith. Back to Abram and Sarah, they wanted a son. A decade passed. They don't see a thing. Nothing happened. And just because you don't see anything doesn't mean God isn't doing something. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean that God isn't doing it. You see, like a seed in the ground, it's not a tree yet. Where's a tree? There's nothing. But God is working on that little seed. He's providing the rain, He's providing the sun. He sees that little seed opens up. A root starts forming. And then this tree appears above ground. So before you see the fruit, God is growing the root. Abram, being human, had the same problem we have. He had limited perspective. He was in a tent and telling God what he did not see. I don't see you working. I don't see anything happening, Lord. In our lives, same thing happened. We're not married yet. I'm getting older. I don't even see a prospect. I'm so buried in debt. I don't see how I'm going to get out. Maybe you went for a medical examination, the report came back. Report that's not good. You see, say, I don't see God anywhere. I don't see Him in my life. I don't see Him protecting me. God, you are not doing what I wanted you to do. If God met all your expectations, He'd never have a chance to exceed them. Back to Abram. Abram is in the tent, telling God what he doesn't see. Genesis 15 verse 5. Then the Lord took Abram outside. The Lord meets Abram and He takes him outside. That's part of what I hope to do today as your pastor, is to take you outside. Outside your current context, your perspective, outside your unmet expectations. Your thoughts are not God's thoughts. Your ways are not God's ways. As heavens are higher than earth, His ways are higher than our thoughts. Genesis 15 verse 5. Then the Lord took Abram outside and said to him, look up into the sky and count the stars if you can. That's how many descendants you will have. Abraham must have been stunned, shaken, maybe even silenced. Maybe he was feeling sorry for himself, because he was thinking addition. God was thinking multiplication. Abraham wanted a son. God promised him nations. If you belong to Christ, you are one of those stars. We are all seeds of Abraham. There's even a song about it. If you belong to Christ, then you are Abraham's seed. That's Galatians 3 verse 29. And then the song, Father Abraham, many sons. Many sons had Father Abraham. I am one. So are you. Let's just praise. Abraham was thinking of a son. God was also thinking of you and me. Never measure God's unlimited power by your limited expectations, because you have no idea what God can produce through a single seed that is planted in faith. If you look at the Gideons, they started by sowing one Bible. Now they are distributing millions. One prayer that is prayed is one gift that is given to somebody. One seed that is sown. One seed at a time. Remember, just because you don't see God working, it doesn't mean He's not doing something. The word tells us that we don't even have the faith of a mustard seed. And if we had the faith of the mustard seed, we can perform miracles. I'm going to leave you with the following verses. Matthew 17 verse 20. You don't have enough faith, Jesus told them. I tell you the truth. If you had faith even as small as a mustard seed, you could say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it would move. Nothing would be impossible. Then Genesis 15 verse 6, and Abraham believed the Lord, and the Lord counted him as righteous because of his faith. Jesus tells his disciples, very truly I tell you, unless a kernel of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains only a single seed. But if it dies, it produces many seeds. John 12 verse 24. You see, a seed is ineffective. It's unfruitful as long as it's preserved. As long as you play it safe, put it in a bottle, nothing's going to happen. If you believe for little, nothing's going to happen. If you live a life without faith, you're just a single seed that's preserved. But if you die to yourself, if you die to your fleshly desires, you will produce many seeds. We are underestimating what the Lord can do. He is still working. He is still good. Zach Eswine said, as a church planter and pastor, I have to make war every day on ego and impatience. We have no idea what God can produce through a single seed planted in faith. Amen.